Saturday's matchup, it features 4 seed Purdue going against 12 seed McNeese. Purdue kind of had a test down the stretch. High Point was able to put some game pressure on the Boilers. They responded swimmingly, got an emphatic win. And McNeese, on the other hand, we saw them just absolutely dominate Clemson for a half, really like 30 minutes. Final 5 minutes got a tiny bit dicey. It's kind of tough to feel like the game was ever really in doubt that Clemson could pull off the upset, but should be a good matchup. We have some contrasting styles here where, McNeese, they're going to throw that matchup zone at you. They're going to force a ton of turnovers. Purdue, on the other hand, they're completely butter their bread with offense. Seventh best offense in the country, really high level shooting team. Everything's going to run through Braden. It's going to run through TKR with Fletcher doing his, shooty 3-point thing here and there. But Carter, what are you looking for out of this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. Like you said, really two contrasting styles. Um, you mentioned what Purdue likes to do offensively. They love to get TKR involved and let TKR work on the block. You look
Mhm.
at what McNeese does and what their personnel looks like. They start guys that are 6'6", and honestly, either the size or shorter than TKR in the post. So you want to think that maybe TKR can have a really dominant game. He started off slow in the High Point game, seemed a little hesitant off the pick and roll, really picked it up, was able to be solid after the two silly fouls that he picked up. I want to lead off this video by first saying this. I don't know what Purdue needs to do. I don't know if you need to ban. I mean, you can't ban him from setting screens because he's so good in the pick and roll. But if I'm Braden or a guard or anybody, I am taking like five more Mississippis before I go off a screen, just in hopes that we can stop TKR from picking up these silly fouls. And he still
Mhm.
might pick up a silly, push off or a over the back foul. But TKR needs to be on the floor in this basketball game because I think he has a mismatch that he can take advantage of, even though, Shoemate's an athlete and they have Joe Charles who has a little bit of size, but TKR should be able to have a really good interior game in this one. And then obviously, I think the story is going to be how Braden and Fletcher deal with the pressure of McNeese. McNeese does want to hound you. They want to try to force turnovers. They want to be physical with you. They have length. They do have size at that position. So they definitely want to make you uncomfortable on the offensive end. And there were some similar opponents this year. Actually, McNeese played Bama earlier this year at Bama. Lost that game by 8 points, so they were in that
Really
game.
close one. Mhm.
Purdue earlier this year played Bama at Mackey, was able to get a really big win at home. So this McNeese team has had some games against stronger opponents. Lost by Mississippi State earlier this year on a semi-away game by 3 points. So this McNeese team has talent, and also the scary part about this, before I talk more about Purdue, is that McNeese is confident right now. They're
Mhm.
feeling themselves. Like Will Wade is talking his talk. Amir gets to fire up another song on the boom box with his NIL deal on front of it. They're putting a little belt to ass celebration. Everything's going good for them. Quietly though, on the other side of this, for the struggles that Purdue had in this High Point game, the story of the High Point game was, oh, High Point's going to come into this game and they're gonna score at the rim at will. Like they're going to get whatever they want. Purdue actually put in a pretty good defensive shift, even though like High Point, I was wondering is it Alan Huss his name?
Allen Huss, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering what his vision was offensively. A little bit weird in this game, the way he attacked it,
Mhm.
but I think part of that was also Purdue did a great job. They had really quick hands. They did a really good job in that one. So I think that there are some ways that Purdue um, can attack McNeese offensively, especially working through TKR, which I know they love to do
Yeah.
in these games. What do you think? Maybe what else Purdue is going to be looking to do, and then on top, and then kind of moving to McNeese as well, how they attack a Purdue defense that is amongst the Chicago states of 2 point percentage defense.
Yeah, it's a great question. Even thinking about the way this Purdue defense played against High Point. I mean, you have to give them some credit for like hanging tough against a team that has a ton of talent. Like I think High Point's really fun to watch with just the way they push tempo and even like again, harkening back to my almanac days, I covered High Point in the Big South and talked to Alan Huss and just like loved chopping it up with him and hearing about his philosophies. Like he's a true modern analytics guy. Loves playing out dribble handoffs, zoom action, all that type of stuff, and he's really big on having multiple guys on the court who can process and like think the game really well. And I think that was in part why I was so shocked by how sloppy High Point played and just some of their turnovers and just like mental mistakes. And even for a team that like High Point always struck me as super confident with how they ran through their league and having a bunch of dudes who played like at the power conference level before, like they're not going to be scared in this game. They hit their first, I think they were started out 4 for 6 against Purdue and just went cold. And I thought they still got good looks, but it looked like the lights got too bright to where I still, even though I like High Point as a mid major. I need to see a little bit more from Purdue defensively to buy any sort of turnaround. And luckily for them, though, I guess they get another mid major opponent to where it might not bite them for this game. But I think, yeah, you kind of hit on like the main storyline for what Purdue does is, how does TKR follow up his, dominant first or excuse me, his dominant round of 64 performance. I mean, he's someone we've known all year how capable he is of scoring. Like he has such good touch around the basket, can get to whatever spot he wants to in the high post, mid post, low post. I think he's been on another level these last 5 games. I mean, he's averaging 25 plus over his last 5 games since the calendar hit March, to where even with how McNeese was able to frustrate both Victor Locken and Ian Shefflin and turn both those dudes over and neutralize them on the glass. For one, I don't think I don't think a TKR is really like a big time rebounder or anything. But I just don't think they're going to be able to neutralize his offense like they did to Shefflin and Locken. I get they can throw bodies at him. He might turn the ball over 4 or 5 times. Like we've seen him do that a couple times this year, but he still should come through with like 25 to 30 points. That just feels like a given, especially at an opponent like this, that despite their tenacity and despite them playing bigger than they are, they still lack a big body that they can throw at TKR.
Yeah, I agree. And look, one of the main things that was impressive in that Clemson game was that McNeese was so impressive on the glass, both offensively and defensively, where people didn't think they would necessarily be able to hang, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, for people who have watched Purdue this year, the offensive rebounding, like the offensive rebounds they allow, has been somewhat of a bugaboo this year and how they allow it. It gets a little bit better with Caleb First on the floor when they made that change, but still, it's going to take a lot of gang effort rebounding, I think, on this one to make it happen. Uh, and that goes on the flip side as well, because in that Clemson game, McNeese had 18 offensive rebounds, and that's against a Clemson team that's pretty good on the board. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I think you look at McNeese and you're like, okay, they're not that great. Like look at their size; they can't be that great rebounding. But honestly, a lot of the rebounding comes from like the guard spot, right? Like in the last game, Kadir Copeland had 7 rebounds. Joe Charles is another one. Like they have Brandon Murray and Sincere Parker combined for 8 rebounds, combined for 5 offensive rebounds between the two. I think they do a really good job team rebounding, and it's going to take I think everybody being very very mindful of maybe boxing out your man and making sure you get a body on people, because this is a team that can like we saw against Clemson, they can beat you up on the boards. And
Mm-hmm.
likewise, McNeese did a great job against Clemson in preventing from getting dominated on the boards, whereas in the High Point game, Purdue was very effective on the offensive glass.
That's a really good point, just from like the gang rebounding perspective. Because, if you look at, I thought they did a really good job keeping Jeslyn Bodo off the glass in the High Point game. I did a profile on High Point for Heat Check CBB heading into the tournament. Like we profiled every auto bid pretty much. I wouldn't have known this otherwise, but Bodo led the country in offensive rebounding rate this year. He only had 3 against Purdue. So it's like, okay, it's good to see, when you play down a level, you're able to take away one of the team's biggest strengths. I mean, High Point grabbed just 7 offensive boards in that game. But I do think you're on to something with seeing how, like, with McNeese, it's not just one dude that you have to snuff out. I mean, we've said his name a lot because he is such a versatile player. Like Quadir Copeland is just one of those dudes who's, I mean, he makes big time plays. He stuffs the stat sheet. He's a bit of a wild card in the sense that you never know if he's going to be stuffing the stat sheet with assists, steals, rebounds, or turnovers. I will throw the turnovers in there a lot. He's kind of prone to turning it over on that end, but they have that. Even if they don't have good positional size, they have that positional versatility. Where all these dudes they're gonna play tenacious. And just that front court of like both Christian Shumate and Joe Charles, I think play way bigger than they are. That could at least extend those McNeese could extend those McNeese possessions that they're gonna need. They're gonna need them to grab. They probably need them to chip in like 5 offensive boards apiece just in the front court to keep up with this Purdue offense.
Yeah, and credit to guys like Cam Heidi in the last game against High Point. He has a double-double in that basketball game. 4 offensive rebounds, 6 defensive rebounds. They doubled up High Point on the glass. And they had to do that because they were not good from three-point range, only 5 for 15. Only one three-point attempt for Fletcher Loyer in 34 minutes. I'm going to get to that quickly next because they need Fletch if they're going to go anywhere in this tournament, right? Like when you talk about Purdue, it's the three guys producing. It's TKR, Braden, and you can't forget about don't forget about Dre. Don't forget about Fletcher Loyer. I don't know if I'd rock with Sleeve Fletch. I know he hurt his arm, but Sleeve Fletcher might not be my guy because for him to only have 4 shot attempts, one three-point attempt in a game, that's just not going to work for this basketball team. He played 34 minutes and he scored 8 points, with a lot of it coming from the free throw line. But Purdue had to be really good on the glass in that game because, like I stated, they were bad from three. They were bad from the free throw line in that game too. They only shot 64% from the free throw line. So it's going to be a different level game. This is a step up in athleticism, I would say too. High Point might have been more dangerous as far as offensively what they can do, even if they didn't do it in that game. But this is more so of a step up, I think, athletically, physically, while also you look at a McNeese team that metrically, they grade out pretty well on offensively. I believe they're still top 100 on KenPom offensively.
Yeah, they are.
They
They're
are okay.
63rd. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're 63rd. Okay, that might have went up from when I did the preview actually too.
Yeah, I mean they can score a little bit. Yeah, it's even though it's another mid-major, it will be another test, and I think you hit on it exactly with the confidence to where I thought after those first few minutes when High Point came out firing, they lost a little bit of that, and the moment seemed a little too big. I will ask you this, Cart. One thing I'm most curious, you teased this at the beginning with Braden and Fletcher handling the pressure. Do you see like for me, Braden is just the wizard ball handler who can make all the right reads, make all the right plays. It doesn't matter what defense you throw at him. But do you think like how many matchup zones that force turnovers like this do you see in the Big Ten? Like maybe Oregon, but that Oregon defense ain't Oregon defense and like it used to when Dana Altman was making a Final Four. Like that was a
Yeah,
good 8 years ago at this
you
point.
don't see enough. And correct me if I'm wrong. McNeese's like zone that they do. Is it a 2-3? Is it like a matchup like it's not a traditional 2-3. It's really good, but it's not like a
Yeah.
traditional 2-3.
Right, right. I would say to me at least, it looked like it had some 2-3 concepts, but it's more matchup, yeah, more matchup zony and
Yeah.
amorphous and always changing to where like it definitely as a non-ball knower, it confuses me trying to watch and diagnose their movements.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really good. It's impressive. Like I think the man principles really help. But the point that I was going to make when I said this, and it actually gets me fired up sometimes when I talk about it because it gets a little bit tiring at times, and I understand that. And this is not even anything you said, right? I'm talking to the masses right now.
Hmm.
Um, it seems to be this notion that like you look at the Purdue front court and you're like, oh, they're just gonna like piss their pants and like not be able to do it, not be ready for the moment. Like this backcourt didn't start in a Final Four. Like this backcourt has played so many big games, and honestly, Fletch having a stinker against High Point might be the best thing that ever happened to this team. To be honest with you, and still win that game because this to me, and I have no stats to back it up. This is just Carter memory right here. Everyone comes into these games like, oh, Fletch stunk last game. Fletch didn't get up any attempts. Oh, Fletcher's gonna play against this hard, tough-nosed defense. He's gonna get thrown off his spot. He's gonna be flopping all over the place. And then next thing you know, Fletcher Loyer is putting like 5 upon your head top and hitting you with the talking to the crowd or doing a celebration. And the other team's looking across him like, I can't believe we're letting this dude who looks like an accountant do this to us. Like, there's a part of that to this. And also, like, I'm not worried about Braden Smith. Like, with all due respect to Kadir Copeland and all the other guards on McNeese State, I'm good. I got Braden. I'll take Braden over that. He's cerebral. He's smart. He's gonna make the right play. I just think that he needs other guys to help him. He has TKR. He needs Fletcher. He also needs something from some other guys. Like they had Cam
Hmm.
Heidi last game. They need guys to knock down shots. All right. Purdue is a good 3-point shooting team. They are way too good to knock down 5 3-pointers in a game. That's this team shoots 39% from three as a team. That's good for top 15 nationally. They
Hmm.
need to one make threes, and two, I think the volume needs to go up for guys like Fletcher. So it's going to be an interesting game to see how it's played out. I'll ask you this: ask you two questions. McNeese wins this game. How does it look?
So McNeese does let you shoot on them, and I would say it would take Purdue, like the non-Braden Purdue perimeter players are a little passive. They're a little they defer, they get spooked by the matchup zone, and I think it takes like an uncharacteristically high turnover game from Braden and probably an additional 4 to 5 turnovers from TKR, and that McNeese just wins this game in transition and TKR is looking for foul calls. We're seeing like Matt Painter's not going full Allen Huss, where it's like every time they cut to that man on the sideline, he looked perplexed that he looked perplexed that the foul calls that weren't going his way. But you definitely get back like the confused Painter face where he's like trying to keep it together, but you see it come out a little bit, and he can't believe that like the refs are letting McNeese be this physical. I think that's how it plays out.
Yeah, I think that's how it plays out. It's like McNeese just knocking Purdue off their pivot is how I would describe it. And
Mm.
to me, Purdue, it's quite simple. I stated I think the 3-point volume needs to go up, and also I think they need to stay within themselves. And lucky for them, they had this experience. They've been a part of this moment. They know what to do. Um, and quite frankly, if I had to make just a statement, I think they're the better basketball team. But we know what happens in March. The better basketball teams don't always win. Look no further than Clemson and McNeese. Like credit to McNeese, but like I consider Clemson to be a better basketball team than McNeese. So that's what happens. That's why you play the games, right?
Yep. So let's go ahead. Riding off of that, let's get into a score prediction. Now, Kim Palm has this spread set at, excuse me, they have the projection at Purdue winning 75-69. So a 6 point victory in there. About similar. I know Clemson, you said, I believe, was 7 point favorites against
Yeah, seven and
McNeese.
a half, I think.
Is that something where do you think it's a close, like two possession game like that? Do you think Purdue's able to run away with it? Or do you think it is even closer than maybe it's a one possession game?
Ooh, you know what? I think it's going to be close. Not to do a cop out here, I kind of like that projection. I like that projection. I think it ends up being like a 5-point game, 6-point game. I think it's close throughout, but I think that a lot of the shots that have been short from Purdue guards lately will go in a little bit, and Fletcher will be a part of that. So I'm gonna take Purdue to win the game. I'll say, just as not copy Mr. Pomeroy, I'm gonna go 78 to 72. Let's go with
I I definitely don't have any qualms with that. There's part of me that wants to say this is like a forgot about Fletch game as a whole,
that.
just like the whole team takes on that mindset. And it's like, yeah, we were literally in the national title game last year, and y'all think we're not gonna lose to one but two mid majors in the tournament? Like, did you not learn against High Point and then they just come out, put the backpack on, and win by like 10 to 15? But just looking at McNeese's schedule, they haven't gotten blown out once this year. All their losses are by 8 points or fewer, to where I think Purdue ends up winning by like at most nine. Maybe they get to that 10 point threshold, but I think it'll probably be like a two possession game. Should be an entertaining one. A lot of storylines here to watch out for. We will be back breaking it all down afterwards.
It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.